What's up, boys? So today I'll be presenting my fantasy football project. This is by Sam Brody. The reasons why I chose my project. The reason why I chose fantasy football is because it's something I love. Sundays are a day that I've always looked forward to because I get to watch my players perform. The satisfaction of when my players score is unreal, and it's why I look forward to football so much. The reason it plays such a big role in my life is because instead of watching football, you can compete. Having to pay attention to a player is more interesting than just watching my favorite team. And my favorite team is the Ravens, who better make the playoffs this year or not. If not, I'm going to be really mad. And it's all Flacco's fault. The culture around fantasy football. Culture around fantasy for me is unique. When I was younger, I used to play in this fantasy league with all my neighbors, and it was just really fun time. Every year we would have a fantasy gathering for the draft, which was something I would always look forward to. I remember all the kids would draft like 8 rounds, and then the dads would always draft for us because we were just so young and we didn't really know a lot about football. But however, for this league, um, a big reason I also loved it was because each year we would put in money, and one year I won. So that's a big reason I started to really love fantasy because of the gambling. I know that doesn't sound good, but I'm not gonna lie. Gambling is something I do enjoy. Teaching moment. So fantasy football is a game where you have to draft current NFL players and then see how they play each week. If a player plays well, the more points he will score. The goal of the game is to score more points than your opponent. When you draft, it is set up so that the players are ranked by how many points they're projected that season. And then also, after you draft, you need to pay attention to the scoring, and the team's points are based off how each player performs. And like usually, what I always do is if one of my players for first few weeks isn't performing well, I'll always look in the free agents to see if I can pick someone up. And sometimes you get really big sleepers, such as this year. One was Nick Chubb, who's on the Cleveland Browns. After week 7 or 8, he started really balling out because Duke Johnson got hurt, and also Carlos Hyde got hurt. So he started getting more playing time, and he's playing very well. And then some leagues are for money, and then with that, there's a commissioner. The commissioner sets up the rules, and the rules that usually he makes are about the playoff teams and like how the point system is set up. Next, the math of fantasy. The math of fantasy is for the scoring. A skilled player for each every 10 yards will receive 1 point, and a skilled player consists of a running back, wide receiver, tight end. And for a quarterback, if he throws for 25 yards, he'll receive a point. And a quarterback, if he throws a touchdown, he'll receive 4. And then for a skilled player, they'll get 6 points for if they score. And then also a quarterback can receive 6 points if he runs it in or throws the ball for touchdowns. And then also you draft kickers, and if they kick a field goal under 39 yards, they receive 3 points. But then anything above that, they get 4 points for 40 through 49, 5 for 50 through 59, and so on. And then also they're getting 1 point for an extra point. And then you also draft a defense, and the unique thing about a defense is each week they start with 10 points, and they can either lose points or gain points based on how they perform. So such as like an interception, you gain points, fumble recovery, sack. Then you lose points based on giving up a certain amount of points, and also yardage. And then the basics of fantasy football. The basics of fantasy football is that in your league, there are usually around 8 to 12 teams, and then there's also the league commissioner, which I talked about, And when you draft your team, you get 16 picks. And then the standard league for starting lineups consists of a quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, a tight end, flex, a defense, and a kicker. Then you also have your bench, which is 7 players. So you have 16 total players, and that's why there's 16 rounds. And what I really like to do is each week pick a new defense up, unless like you get one of the better defenses. But I always draft a defense late late rounds because I want to focus on getting more skilled positions, maybe get a sleeper in there, and that's it for the basics. And then now I'd like to tell you guys my starting fantasy lineup. My quarterback is Russell Wilson, Seattle Seahawks. Running backs are Christian McCaffrey, Ezekiel Elliott. Um, Christian McCaffrey plays for the Panthers, and then Ezekiel Elliott plays for the Cowboys. My wide receivers are Michael Thomas, he plays for the Saints, and Allen Robinson, he plays for the Bears, and he's a bum. He's not playing well. He used to be better, but this year he's kind of sucks. And then I have James Conner. He's the Steelers running back, and he is balling out this year. Absolute beast. Thanks to Le'Veon Bell for not playing. I appreciate it. Big sleeper, James Conner. Thank you. Then my defense is the Texans. And then I have Brent Mayer for my kicker. He's on the Cowboys. Wow, I'm tired. Math around a player on my team, and that player I'm going to talk about is Christian McCaffrey. And so this week he's projected 20.6 points. And the reason they're giving him this is because he's averaged the last 6 games 28.6 points, and they usually base that off of that. And then this week he's playing the Browns, which is not a great matchup, but it's not a bad one for him because their run defense is pretty good. They're number 7 in the league, giving up 98 rushing yards a game. So what they do with that is for McCaffrey, they would probably say he's probably going to get around 70 rushing yards because McCaffrey doesn't get a ton of carries. And then what they would also calculate is his percentage of scoring, like his percent that he could score. And so they have him at 0.6, like 60% out of 100% to score, which is pretty high for a skilled position. And then the good thing about Christian McCaffrey is he receives a lot of catches out of the backfield, so that's how he racks up points. And I forgot to talk about this. So my league, it's PPR, which means you get a point per reception, so that also has to do with the math because every catch he gets 0.5 points. So like McCaffrey usually gets around 6 catches a game, so that adds up to 3 points, which actually doesn't seem like a lot, but those 3 points are pretty useful. And then the downside of fantasy football. Some fantasy football players play for crazy amounts of money, which is not what I hope to do when I'm older. And then people can spend so much money to get in the league, and then they are too confident in their ability to win, and this really can affect their life because they've spent so much money buying into leagues. It actually has caused some people to lose jobs because of how much attention they focus onto the actual team, onto their fantasy teams, because they're spending all their hours at work just trying to pick up new players and worried about how they're going to do that week. And actually, this has resulted in some people getting fired. And then lastly, I have some fun facts about fantasy football. This is crazy. Fantasy football was actually created in 1962, which is unheard of. And then the average age for someone playing fantasy football is 34 years old. And then almost 80% of fantasy football players are not married. And then 70% of fantasy football players consider football as their favorite sport. And an average about 2 hours per week for a normal person is spent in a work environment by employees on like fantasy and fixing their lineups. Then the estimated value of the fantasy football market is around $11 billion. And lastly, Clinton Portis is the highest scoring. He had the highest scoring game ever, and he got 53 points, and he played for the Washington Redskins. I like to thank you guys for watching my video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll hope to make another one soon. See you guys later. Thank you.